To get started making my Willie the Wildcat costume, the first thing I've done here is I've taken just a regular balloon. I've blown it up as large as I think I can without it popping. And I like to use a bowl underneath. It's just easy for me to work with. Otherwise, once the paper mache gets all wet and gooey, if I were to kind of lay it down here, every time I pick it up, pieces of the paper will start to fall off or get stuck to the paper I have here just to guard my table. So I've always just used this. It helps keep it from rolling around quite as much and helps me not make as big of a mess. I also, whenever I'm making a character, try to print off several different pictures of the character. Here I have Willie the Wildcat, and over here I have a couple different silhouettes or viewpoints of his head that will help me later when I paint, as well as get the correct shapes that I want. So I have those ready to go. And then for this, basically this first part here, I'm just going to paper mache. So I've already got my strips of paper torn up, and I said torn. Now that's just me being picky. I like to tear because I feel like when you tear, the edges blend a little bit nicer for the paper mache. Again, that might be me being picky. If you want to cut it, you could cut it. I also have a throwaway plate because this part gets really messy and I don't really want to wash it later. I like to just be able to throw it away. And then today I'm going to use a glue and water solution, and I don't have a formula for that. I basically just pour the glue in here and then dilute it with some water and then use my paper strips for the paper mache. You could also use some flour in that if you want, but today I'm just going to use these two. And then normally I would use masking tape to kind of shape my balloon, but today I couldn't find any masking tape and I don't really feel like going to the store, so I'm going to use electrical tape. My husband may not like this, but anyway, I don't think it's that expensive, and I kind of like how electrical tape kind of has a nice stretch to it, so I think it might be kind of fun to use to help stretch around the balloon anyway. So here's my balloon, and I really don't need this right now, so I'm going to get that out of the way. And this is going to be where Willie the Wildcat's mouth is. So I'm hoping that my son's head fits in here like this. Actually, but he'll be wearing it on top of his head like this. I think it's big enough, and so I'm going to go ahead and work with this. But this area right here is just a little bit too pointy. I think it looks more like a mouse than a cat, but I do want a little bit of point up here. So I'm not going to try to smush it down into a ball form like I might do for some of the other characters I've made. I do want to keep a little bit of this. But to do that, I'm going to shape it with the tape. And I usually like to start with this area here because that's just kind of annoying. And when the paper mache, you paper mache over this. So as far as that little weird spot on the balloon, you just won't notice it later because you're going to pop the balloon and take it out. But I try to get a little bit of tape ahead of myself so that I can pull. And when you're pulling and pushing on the balloon, what you're doing is you're shaping it a little bit. And then I try to get it back here. And then, because I'm trying to get rid of some of this poofy part in front of the nose, I'm going to smash it against me and tape some more, and that will take out some of that pointy part a little bit. And sometimes I have to do, if I'm trying to make a ball, I would zigzag across the balloon actually several times. But because I'm not changing the shape too much, I'm just going to kind of take some of it out this direction, and then I'm going to go over the top. I don't know why, but when I paper mache, I kind of have to do it standing up. So I'm going to stand up, and if you've never seen paper mache before, you basically just put your strips into your glue, water, possibly flour solution if that's what you're using, and then lay it over the item that you are trying to paper mache, and you just continue to do this for a very long time. It's been about 1 week since I started my Willie the Wildcat here, and a couple things that I want to tell you real quick that I did. Finished up the paper mache, let it dry, got it pretty solid, and then I am going to add more paper mache to it as well as paint, so it'll continue just to get stronger as I continually add things to it. But real quick, I took a box knife and cut out a hole here about the size. I made sure my son can fit his head in there comfortably. I don't want it too much larger than his head. I will be putting some different foam and things in here so that it doesn't wobble around on his head quite as much, but I also think that by keeping the hole a little bit smaller for him, it makes it so that that as well won't cause as much wobbling around. I also took out the balloon that was inside, and I can now throw that away. And then I went ahead and I just started blocking out. I found my center, and this was kind of tricky, so what I did here is I kind of held it like this, like I like the shape, because I want this pointier part to be the Wildcat nose. So I went ahead and held it, and then found my center and went ahead and drew the center all the way up. And to give you an idea of how I start to add some bulk into some of these areas, I'm going to go ahead and show you. I just take some parts of the paper and I went ahead and I ripped it up, and this section here, I'm going to turn it diagonally and sort of crumple it. And the reason I turned it diagonally is because when I do that, I have more bulk up here and less bulk over here. So then as I come to an area like this eyebrow area, and I lay this down, and I will start to glue it with just plain Elmer's glue. I'll just go ahead and put some on the back here. And then I kind of glue that around here. And then later I'll paper mache over it so you won't see these hard, rougher edges here. And then as I get over to this end here, depending on how much I need or where I need it to kind of come off of from here, I can kind of cut through here so that I have a smoother shape here as well. And then I'll do the same over on this side. And then on this area here, again, might take a couple pieces, but see this area here, I want to be bulkier up here and come kind of more gradually here. And so for that kind of a scenario, I may do something more like this and start building it up that way. And you can do, you know, as many times as you need to kind of build it out and get it the direction you want it to go. See here, I'm working up this brow bone area, and I really liked the left side came out a little bit better. And like I said, I'm going to paper mache all of this, kind of like I put a piece here. I'll show you. I put a piece kind of like this, and then paper mache over this to sort of smooth all of this out once I get areas built up. So right here, I like how this brow area here is really built up, but over here, when I was gluing it down, I kind of smashed it down a little too hard, or, you know, anyway, just I want it to be built up a little bit more like this. So then once you kind of get some of this and you start to work areas to kind of get it more symmetrical, I want to make this happen a little bit over here. So I can take a piece like this and sort of glue it onto here, and making sure I don't smash it down quite like I did before. I can glue on here and then start to work up this area so that it matches this side here. I finished up pretty much building up to get what I was really looking for here was a nice profile, and I like where it's at right now. So basically what I'm going to do now, after I've spent this time building up my bone structure here, I'm going to go over pretty much this whole face area with some more paper mache strips. Okay, so here's my finished Willie the Wildcat head, and I have it outside. I'm going to start spray painting it. I finished a first coat of paint on Willie the Wildcat, and then I needed to draw some lines to show his stripes that are around his cheekbone areas right there. And just to help me be able to see what I was doing, I went ahead and spray painted a tiny bit of white, which is going to help me give some of that gray coloring anyway. Again, I don't know that you need to do this. I just wanted to spray paint all over one good coat. It also helps you see any imperfections that you might have in the paper mache itself. And I was able to glue down some areas after seeing that. And I just like to have a couple layers of paint, and this was one very quick way to get a coat of paint on here without using a paintbrush. Again, it would have been a lot easier and saved me maybe some time later if I had had gray paint, but I'm okay with it because I can just paint the gray over the top. I finished painting the head, and then I took it outside and I did a clear matte coat all over everything just to give it a little bit more protection. And then right now we have Willie the Wildcat bobblehead, which is not ideally what we want for trick-or-treating. So what I need to do a little bit of working the inside to make it a little bit more comfortable for some trick-or-treating. And the first thing I need is I need the head just a tiny bit up so that the eyes, my son's eyes, can see through the mouth here. So, inside here, I don't know if you can see it, but I basically ended up doing 2 layers of this foam, and I was trying to cut it in and kind of piece it around his head, and it, besides gluing my son's hair, I was accomplishing nothing. So what really turned out and worked out the best was this green foam, which I'm not taking out because we've got it perfectly positioned now. I put 2 layers of it, sandwiched it in here nice and tight, and then he can stick his head in there and he kind of wedges his chin up here, and it keeps it from rocking around back and forth. He is able to look out, and we tested it. He walked around the house a little bit and did not trip and fall. So. Billy, are you ready to go? Ready? K, S, U, Wildcats. Woohoo! Good job.